but he didn't come with us this weekend. Have you ever watched the show before? Did I ever ask you that? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. David always uses the "and we're back," but we lost him. He was supposed to be here this weekend. Had like a last-second surgery for his dad that he had to be there for, like just kind of last minute. So hopefully, David, good luck. Hope everything's okay. We haven't talked to him. I'm sure it's fine. It's positive. He's not gonna watch it. He might watch it because he's not on it. Yeah, he might watch it because he's not on it. We're here with Oscar Zornosa from out of Atlanta. Are you from Atlanta originally, or?
I grew up in Florida.
Okay, what part?
Just north of West Palm Beach.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
South Central Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds hardcore.
Yeah. Super tough.
How'd you end up in Atlanta from Florida?
Kind of roundabout ways. After I apprenticed in Florida, but I worked for interlopers who didn't really care too much for the industry. Everything was about money. I knew I wanted to get better. Went out to Denver. When I went to Denver, I was getting jobs at shops. The problem was that I kept wanting to push myself, but the only places I could get work was either like decent shops that had like a lot of problems, which we all know how that goes, like drug money, all sorts of shit, or not so great shops where people are lazy or just dangerous, honestly, off of Colfax Avenue and shit. And
that tattoo community there's pretty big in Denver, though, right?
Yeah. No, there's great shops, but when I went out there, I wasn't good enough to be anywhere close to where I really wanted to tattoo at.
Right. How long had you been tattooing at that point that you moved out there?
That was 2 years.
Okay. Right.
And then I made a very fatal flaw. I got very discouraged, and I thought because these drug dealers and cretins could own shops that my ass, I could own a shop.
Right.
Long story short, I opened up a shop in Michigan. We did all right, but I would say my learning was on pause all 3 years that I was there. It didn't really help me in any way. I was too young, and if anything, it just drove up my ego and didn't really progress me at all.
As an artist?
As an artist, no. The one nice thing is that now, when I do open up a shop eventually, which I'm in no rush to do so, at least now I know like what to do and what not to do. So that's a good lesson.
What were the biggest challenges with opening a shop? Just you weren't a business person and trying to make that happen, or split your time, or
the splitting of the time, because like I said, I've always made just the artwork I wanted to be first. But when you're that inexperienced, you need to be tattooing for 10 years, more or less.
Yeah. Sorry. Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt. I mean, that's even no matter how long you've been tattooing, you're taking on a completely different role at that point.
Yeah. I mean, between everybody's problems or your problems, to just all the left versus right brain shit. Which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're constantly going back and forth, it's hard to balance the two out.
No doubt.
And just a lot of stress when I should have been focusing on art.
Yeah.
And that's when I finally moved to Atlanta.
What incentivized the move there? What was it?
I wanted to make my art a lot better. I realized after 3 years that I didn't go anywhere, and I wasn't getting any better. And I knew Atlanta had the 3 shops that I would love to work at, and which was Ink and Dagger, Psycho, and All or Nothing. Just looking at the artists that I wanted to work with. Luckily enough, Tony Mancia had just moved onto his own and moved into his private studio. And they needed another guy that could do, any kind of realism of any kind. So snuck in with there. Super grateful. That's where I feel like I actually started learning how to tattoo for real.
Yeah.
The effort was always there, but I just never had the knowledge. That doesn't excuse me, but having people like Dave Tedder, and I also befriended Tony. Josh Lindley, who's a traditional guy. Just all those guys really helped push me farther and just make me do clean, and execute more so than dream about all these crazy ideas, which I still do too much, but still. They reeled me back in like real hard, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. So you started with strictly realism. Is that kind of where you cut your teeth? And that was a challenge to Were you a pretty confident artist beforehand? What was your background before you started tattooing?
The funny thing is that I did nothing but black and gray charcoal realism when I got my apprenticeship. I never did any color. Even when I painted black and gray. And it wasn't until, because I was in Florida in mid 2000s, so it was all new school, bright color, full color realism. That's what everyone was getting. And I kind of adapted to that, and I started doing color. And just because of my realism background, I had an easier time doing that full color realism stuff right off the bat. Which basically stuck with me until I got to more or less all or nothing. Like, I started having that change when I knew I needed to get better. I started realizing that more illustrative, higher contrast imagery was the route to go, regardless of whether you were going to do lines or no lines. The appropriate simplification of certain realistic techniques is incredibly valuable in any tattoo, especially for longevity, which is how I tried to start to think about it.
So in your background especially working only in grayscale, your background as a grayscale-based realist drawer, painter, artist.
Copier. I was a copier for a long time. I could not draw worth a fucking damn.
Oh, okay. But still helped you to translate, because once you understand value, it was pretty easy to translate to color. As long as you didn't lose sight of value in the meantime. And so you found that in tattooing, that simplifying a lot of those shapes, pushing contrast, and turning forms cleanly and simply was the best kind of route.
For sure. Like I said, I've now gone to more like, I hardly ever do any no-line realism anymore, and that's just a personal choice. I tend to do a bit of a mix now, and I like that. That extra outside line, even if it's just a perimeter line, really helps keep that tattoo a lot tighter for a lot longer. Especially like, on the smaller scale, when you're getting these giant pieces, shit's not going to spread that quickly or, fade out that quickly. But, on anything a page or smaller, those lines and those simpler, more graphic and illustrative areas really help to hold and push out all of that more so all of your rainbow vomit and the glitter that you catch people's eyes with.
We talk a lot about longevity, but then also about readability, and especially in smaller pieces. And sometimes people get so we all have I think the same struggle of getting so fancy, or like working so many little tricks here and there that you step 5 feet away from the piece and you're like, oh, well, that's a disaster. I have no idea what I'm supposed to look at.
A bunch of ants crawling over charred catfish.
That's well said. I've never heard that. How did you? I've noticed. I flipped through your portfolio a little bit. You've fairly recently, I guess, started getting into some geometry. And you're incorporating that nicely with some of your illustrative realism as well.
It's been a slow transition. I started out doing stipple stuff at first. And then I still do that from time to time. I still have a few appointments here or there doing stippling and stuff like that. And I just really got into it because it's really clean. It's simple, but it's also very intricate. And very classic as well, kind of just like black and gray tattoos, how they're just always classic. So I just feel like, it's something that will kind of always stay relatively within the scheme of things. And the versatility is just ridiculous. There are so many different ways to be able to do it. And I did a color piece. Like, the funny thing is that with my color geometric stuff, I was really only doing black and gray and dot works type geometry, mandalas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I had a client who came in and was like, "Oh, I want color geometry," and I was like, "Shit,
what am I gonna do?"
Yeah, like what am I gonna do? Because like I didn't want it, you know. When I see other really nice before Russ started really getting into his stuff, a lot of that stuff looked really girly, not a lot of black. It just didn't seem like a hard hitting tattoo, something really powerful. And
I always felt the same way, kind of like stuff like guys like Michelle Wortman was doing some stuff like that.
Right.
Nice, but very soft and it doesn't translate to a lot of clientele. Like
right. And it was just something I wasn't super into, and I was just like, you know what? Why don't I put some black lines in this bitch? And fuck color line work for this. And put more black than I thought is necessary, and then I'll just color it out and stay true to just basic color theory. And just work off of that.
Did you have a good background in color theory to begin? What was? I know you said you drew a lot. Did you have a formal degree, art training?
No, not at all.
Just self-taught color theory from books.
Pretty much. I took a lot of art classes in high school and through college. I was actually pre-med once upon a time, so it was a bit of a change in direction for me when I was 21. But I've taken some painting classes here or there. I've known of a color wheel, since I was a kid. But I didn't really start trying to incorporate it and really use it up until maybe I got to All or Nothing, so a couple years ago when I really started learning it. But I mean, once you start down that road, there's just so much to take consider, like muted versus bright, pastel, opaque versus washed out, and also texture theory too, which is super big. Because that was something I didn't even I wasn't even really considering, and that's another thing that kind of makes those jumbled ass tattoos is, texture on top of texture, which was a big fault of mine for a long time. I felt like my color theory was relatively there, but I was just putting, bumpy next to scratchy, next to open, and not doing that nice contrast between all three and kind of staggering it so that things separate.
Right. Not giving any place for someone's eye to rest.
Right.
No one.
Exactly.
Confusing.
Glitter on top of glitter.
Right. Yeah, and that's something that is definitely a trick. We used to see a lot of it when I started in the mid-'90s tattooing, when a lot of small detail fine line stuff was still kind of going around, and it was all about how much shit can I cram into this, how fancy can I make it, and it just, it just built on itself for so long, and I'm glad to see that people have. I was blind to it, I thought the same thing. I was just like, oh, you just, if I can work a little thing into that, I'm going to work it into that too, and can I cram this into here too, and you just, and then whenever things like the bioorganic and biomech stuff came in, and people were trying to build all these gnarly things on top of other gnarly things, and that's super important. It's just to consider, step back for a second, blur your eyes, and say, okay, where should this thing relax a little bit?
I stay completely away from bioorganic, man, or biomechanical, because I have no handle on that. Because it's just going to end up looking like tree roots with warts on it.
I think that's
that might be cool. I'm sure, Guy could do that awesome, but not me, dude. It's just gonna look like a VD, bro. You got VD tattooed on your arm.
But talk for a second about your approach to your stenciling approach on that geometry. Yesterday you did a big kind of leg piece, and you didn't have it. You kind of hand drew the whole thing, but it had a lot of very geometric stuff in it, and you used a stencil of a graph-based stencil. What was your thought process?
What I try to do now, my two biggest influences for any kind of color geometry or any kind of crazy perspective overlays or something like that. I love Adrian Lee's work, and I love Russ's work. And composition wise, Adrian, just with his use of space and everything, and keeping some things very simplified and pretty wide open, and then having your focal points. And then with Russ, spot on color theory, and also very much texture theory as well on his. I tried to take into that consideration, but what I like to do, actually I'm terrible at like any kind of computer program.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, I'm analog as fuck on all this shit.
Yeah.
So like I'm hand drawing all this shit, except for I use like base patterns, and I try to just change it up a little bit more on like the Star of David patterns, the cube patterns, the honeycomb patterns. Essentially, I try to take these simpler ones as a background, and I try to change it up a little bit and just play the perspective a little bit per one, and then I have the little trick of like doing like the whole cave thing, the ingress, with some with my subject matter coming out of it, and that's something I stick real hard with because it creates a lot of depth, and neither one of those guys are really doing it, and I really try to like respect what they are doing and the tricks that they use, and I try to stay away from that and just apply it in like the different ways that I see how you can apply it.
Yeah. How do you mean you're saying with your background patterns you're trying to like give the illusion through value and color that it's moving back and
yes, and throwing like really heavy black, just to create that depth that it's in a hole.
Yeah.
And then and also just really instead of like playing on like a lot of flat, because when you see geometry, you see a lot of 2D, and there's some crazy stuff that they do. I really try to, make back, middle, front on everything, and to like take into account the skin, and I'm admittedly horrible at fading out into skin with color. So as you saw yesterday, and if you see like any of my other color geometry stuff, I tend to find edges, and I like those hard, crisp edges.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is like someone who has an old tattoo or something else, and then I could just work right up against that.
Yeah.
So that way I don't have to worry about being like the most ridiculously clean fade into skin.
Yeah.
And that's where we're like Russ fucking just destroys it on using skin to actually build on the piece.
Yeah.
And I know that. Hopefully it'll get cleaner and I can start using that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But for now, I really like the edges and everything.
Yeah. I remember I used to always struggle with how to finish tattoos, and we talk a lot about trying to leave ourselves an in to pull back into something, because inevitably everyone comes back and wants to build off of whatever you've already done. And I don't know if you know Dimitri HK from Paris, but the first time that he did a guest spot at our shop, I can remember some kind of piece that he had snowflakes in. So it was well before geometry was popular, but they were little geometric snowflakes.
Right.
And he transitioned from positive snowflakes somehow to negative snowflakes, like in the background.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that's what I got to learn how to like because I was the same way. Like I don't think I can like blend it or get anything smooth to kind of like fall out. So I've just got to find a way to like start introducing the same shape in a negative way, just another trick of trying to solve the same problem.
Yeah, I mean, definitely one of my biggest faults is backgrounds. I have a very hard time with that. If it's not realistic, realism's pretty easy on backgrounds, just and it's pretty much done. But as far as like more illustrative stuff and stuff like that, especially being able to work off of another piece and connect it, that was definitely something I struggled with for a really long time, and I still is something that I look at now, is something like, because you can do an amazing middle and foreground piece, and if that background's wonky, you went from an A to a C really quickly.
Or if you're not paying attention to value or color contrast or those kinds of things, and suddenly the background jumps forward and everything turns into a disaster. So it's really easy to go south quickly with backgrounds, no doubt. Why is there any reason that are you avoiding digital technology, or you just have it?
It's not that. I've never been. I've always done things pretty analog. I like hand drawing a lot of stuff. It was just something I'm more comfortable with. Now that I see all these programs, man, it's like almost like, man, dude, I need to jump on the bandwagon because like this shit just takes way too long, really, I just haven't. I just bought a Wacom Cintiq because I was terrible at using the mouse. With Photoshop.
Which one did you get? Which
the 13 Touch HD.
Yeah.
Because I really need something to like actually draw on the screen.
Right.
I can't do the draw on a black screen and look at this or whatever. I need to see it right there. So I just got that a couple weeks ago, and I started doing some tutorials. I know Russ has a few. What I was thinking about doing was, trying to find a good graphic designer out there who I could just pay, and then hopefully have some more one-on-one stuff.
Right.
Because it seems like, a lot of those YouTube tutorials, you have to watch an hour's worth of stuff to get, maybe 5 minutes of info that pertains to you, because digital media is so large. There's so many things. So to find the things that actually work for you takes a lot of sifting.
I'm with you. I kind of held off on that for a long time too, and it wasn't until we were actually podcasting with Russ 6 or 8 months ago, and I sat down at his station and kind of played with his 27-inch, whatever giant thing he has.
His movie screen
Cintiq, and I was like, oh, I see some. I liked it just for, and I don't do any kind of geometry or anything like that, but I enjoyed it just to have something to sketch on. It really makes some pretty nice, believable charcoal marks, and it's so pressure sensitive and all that. Still a little bit weird that they say that it has a lot more tooth and it doesn't, but it still feels a little bit like drawing on marble to me. But I'm used to that at this point. But I was the same way. I avoided it for a long time, and I watched him. He did a little demo for me there, and I saw it, like he drew a mandala real quickly for me, and he had it set on like 16ths, so he could draw this much of it, and it made the whole rest of the thing.
Right.
So he drew one in literally 5 to 10 seconds.
Right.
I'm just like, well, that's just stupid, man. That's cheating. What are you doing?
I mean, it's just coming with the times, man. Why use old technology when you can use new technology? I kind of go back and forth on that, because it's not authentic or whatever, but fuck it, man. Whatever gets the job done right. Whether it's by hand and it takes you 10 hours, or you throw it up on the computer and it took you 2 minutes.
And if you're solving that problem, like the time that it takes to draw out or to trace out an entire mandala, you're not really. You're getting the exact same result a lot quicker, and you're not really benefiting yourself or the client by spending an hour hand drawing that thing.
Right.
So that gives you more time to spend on the composition or on some other part of it.
And actually, most of us now probably, because we spend way more time tattooing than anything else, pull cleaner lines at tattooing versus setting up a stencil. So it makes sense. The better your stencil is, the better your end product's going to be. So I totally get the validation or the usefulness of the value of doing those computer rendered things, because it makes the job way easier, and you can come out with a better tattoo, and I think that's super smart.
No doubt. Have you tried to use it at all in any of your other fine art, not tattoo based?
Yes. I know light photoshopping skills. So basically I'm a glorified collager, essentially. Right. And that helps me out with reference. Again, I was analog for a lot of time. Probably the last year or two, I've been pretty much I've been trying to do some kind of computer mock-up before I actually do it, because before I would just have 3 different references, a skull, a rose, and a dagger, and they would all be different, and I would draw my thing, and they wouldn't have the same lighting or anything like that. So now I try to have more focus on every element to the tattoo needs to at least have the same lighting and stuff like that, so that way your values start to match up way better, versus trying to guess and figure all that out as you're tattooing. Right.
Yeah, I think no doubt that definitely helps, and you see so many people that, for whatever reason, don't have the art background that are obviously doing that. Google image search of the 4 elements that they're looking for, pull the 4 coolest things that they see, I want that skull, I want that dagger, and then pay no attention to the difference in light source or even the difference stylistically, because too often people aren't pulling people are pulling other drawings anyways, and so
Right.
you see all of this kind of like you're saying, almost like this cut and paste job. That's unfortunate, and of course that that happens not just in digital media, but in if you're drawing from that stuff, you still have the same issue.
Yeah.
Where do people are you? How far are you booking out? Are you taking appointments?
Yes. I'm taking appointments. Right now, I'm basically booking into late May, early June.
Okay. Okay. So a little ways, because I don't know when this comes out, but we're February 20th, right? Somewhere around there. Right around mid-February, late February right now. So
what I'm trying to do, I've been tattooing now 8 years. What I'm trying to do, the last 6 months has really taken off for me. And it's starting to get to a point where I want to spend a little bit more time and a little bit more effort per piece, and also just finally starting to try to find any kind of niche or just limit myself to like a certain amount of subject matter. When I was apprenticed, it was taught to me that if you want to be a good tattooer, you need to first learn how to draw everything, and I have like I still draw and paint Japanese watercolor from time to time.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. I don't advertise that I do it. I will do smaller pieces and stuff like that, but I'm trying to get away from that because like there's just so many better people that are doing it than me, and so I'm trying to limit it to surrealism, both black and gray and color, and geometry, both black and gray and color.
Yeah.
And if I can be more or less fairly consistent on all four of those fronts, that would make me happy. Right now the thing I'm having the most fun is geometry, just because taking something simple and you can do 5 billion things with it.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it helps that that people are paying attention to it right now, and you have that freedom to kind of explore, because a lot of people want to see it. And I know in Atlanta, in that big of a city, there's probably more than enough geometry to go around as far as from a clientele standpoint.
Yes. Well, I get a lot of stuff that people can't afford from Russ. So, like that's great.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy with that. And actually, Blaine Bus or Bias, I'm probably butchering her name. She does a lot of color stuff, and then Savannah does all that great black stuff. Essentially, I get really good color mixed with a little bit of that illustrative realism, because it's not really like anything else. And even with my black stuff, I still do a lot of that illustrative mixing. I love skulls, so I always try to throw a skull in anything. So I'm glad that I'm surrounded by people that keep a very high level, and also just do it slightly differently, so it helps keep my step up, and make sure, because a lot of my clients will eventually either have got tattooed by either Russ, Savannah, or Blaine, or will get tattooed by them. So I want to make sure that
you're up to
I'm just at least just somewhere close. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, cool. Where do people find you if they want to book, or if they want to just look at work?
I have a website. It's OscarZTattoo.com. My Instagram and my Facebook is just my name, Oscar Zornosa, and I work at Empyrean Tattoo in Sandy Springs. And
places.
I don't really. I'm probably going to be traveling a little bit more now, but I also felt that I knew for the longest time my work was lacking a little bit, and I didn't want to step out too far until I started getting a little bit more consistent. And now that I feel I've kind of come into my own a little bit,
I can start getting out there.
Yeah, I can start traveling a little bit more.
Any travel dates in the near future?
I'll probably do Atlanta, and right now I'm trying to figure out my scheduling thing, because I am starting to book out a little far. So I'm trying to figure out what the best course of action is, as far as like restricting things and stuff like that, just so I have a little bit shorter time so I can do a little bit more traveling and whatnot.
Yeah. Have you considered closing your books and just taking blocks of time and then reopening, or do you just steadily book as far out?
The whole thing is that like I go back and forth on like I understand the value in saying like, okay, I'm going to do one thing, I'm going to do it well.
Yeah.
I also take the client end on that end because not everybody wants a fucking $3,000 piece, you know.
Yeah.
So I still try to keep that in my mind to just facilitate what people want. I'm still doing cover-ups, fix-ups from time to time. Those are the things that I'm probably going to start getting away from, is cover-ups and fix-ups. But you know, right now I still feel like I have a little bit more work left to do before I start being like, you know, I only do this and I'm closing my books, because I just need the practice. I just need to stay busy and constantly improve on saturation and line work and blending.
Yeah. I was just thinking this, if you're booking till around June right now, one thing I noticed, tattooing in Memphis, which is a smaller town than Atlanta, but it was easy to get booked out 6 months plus. And I always felt like such an ass because I would have a consultation with someone in February, and we would book an appointment for late May, and then I would look at that name and I would look at the notes that I made, and I would be like, I don't remember any of this.
Right.
And they're excited that entire period of time, and then they have to come to the realization that I call them a week before, and they're like, can we refresh what we even talked about? Because they think I've been thinking about it the whole time too, you know. And I feel like the asshole, so I got away from it. I get a few weeks, and I'm just like, that's it for right now, because I don't want to look like a dick.
Yeah, no, that's totally valid, and that's one of those things too that I'm just like, you know, I do want to shorten it up, but you know, it's getting there. If I can make the right strides, I'll probably get to that soon, maybe by the end of the year or so. I don't want to raise my rate. I feel like it's totally fair.
Yeah.
So you know, so I don't want to scare anybody away price-wise. I'm just starting to be a little bit more picky as far as what I take, and I'm try to pass it on down the line with just some of the younger tattooers that are in my shop and stuff like that, or recommending other people in town and stuff like that.
Yeah. Great, man. Everyone, check out Oscar's work. He's doing beautiful work, very unique stuff. I can't believe you knocked out that giant piece yesterday. It was huge.
You know, that's one thing I've worked on a lot. For a very long time, I was terrible at one-shot tattooing. And that's one of the reasons why I love geometry so much, is because, like, you know, with realism, you're just constantly, you know, kind of getting in there, letting it settle, kind of getting in there, let it settle, you know, that kind of thing. With the geometry, it's nice because it's just like, okay, either solid fill, nothing, or just the easiest fade of all time. So that really helps my speed and the one-shot tattooing, which is also translated into my realism as well. It's really helped me step back. Because I have way more practice on these super solid areas. My softer stuff is now becoming way more one shot, and just cleaner, less beating up of the skin and stuff. So that's probably the happiest thing, that just the fact that I finished that thing was probably the happiest thing I had for that tattoo.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Man, thanks for coming on. Great meeting you. Everyone, check out his work. Oscar Zornosa on Instagram, and we'll put all the other stuff in the show notes and link to it so everybody can find you.
Excellent.
Thanks. TattooImprovement.com.
It was an honor, guys.
Thank you.